Alright, from the nation from 3,000 years ago to the final one, we now rank my 5 favorite clans in the Zoo Nation. And this one is a little hard to make since Zoo is one of those really under-supported nations overall, except for Neo Nectar because it was played by a main character. But anyway, like usual, I rank these based on their design and playstyle, and not by their abilities, because by their abilities is going to be a little biased. So it is all based on my opinion. So let's begin. So on the bottom of my list, which is number 5, it's Cecilia. Yes, Cecilia is very simple, just with calling clan tokens, if you play V anyway, but if you play the original, it's recycling and then regrowing your cards that have the same name as your Vanguard, which is more so typical Neo Nectar from both sides, but more so Cecilia Reverse is what I find this a little more interesting, which is kind of funny to see in the first place since Neo Nectar already had a reverse unit, but for some reason they made another one. But anyway, I really like the plant warrior-like design with all the recycling, but with reverse, you can actually just make those called units use as fodder to basically get you more attacks, aka another Vanguard attack and another rearguard attack. And I also like that it doesn't need to be specifically both the plant tokens or the original playstyle where you're calling more from deck with same names. Not the most unique way of playstyle, but I do like the fun interaction. Number 4 is Giroffa, mainly the V version. Why I like this version? It's because despite lack of support in many ways, I like the force rest on your opponent, the hand calling and force resting on your opponent, aka force paralyze, and how the reverse unit can manipulate your opponent's choice, whether they want to basically let you do stuff or basically let you even do other stuff. It punishes your opponent either way, whether they want to try to punish you or not. And overall, I just find the design pretty cool, but mainly with the hand paralyzed part because I find that a little scary. And then number 3, it's Isabel and Leopold because they both have the same playstyle of playing with lottery. Now Isabel is more so because it lets you use both abilities of lotteries despite what you mill, while Leopold, it may be limited to one, but when you play it as Leopold Reverse, I like the part where you could even use order cards, and I find that pretty neat. It's just too bad that they kind of played exactly the same, so it's hard to differentiate both of them anyway, so I just put them as in the same list. But I do like the lottery mechanic because it is based on luck, and depending on scenario, it actually plays some way. But also Leopold is a bit limited, but has an extra option, so that's why it's also on the same list here. But with Leopold Reverse, you do need to have the original Leopold just for some extra consistency for the lottery, but I do like to add the order part. And into number 2, it's Gridora. Now it's another Mega Colony deck that paralyzes your opponent if you play the original, but if you play the V version, it plays with Cradle Markers, which basically makes your opponent lose his abilities, makes their power to 0, so it's still in a way paralyzed. And in a way, I find that a little more unique because making your opponent lose abilities is actually quite nasty. I also like the strides, especially Overwhelm, which can actually punish your opponent if they have less stuff, while you still get a lot of benefits if they have more stuff, but also the stride form of Gridora. I really like that not only it mass paralyzes your opponent's field, but also superior calling from hand. And that itself is quite nasty because a lot of decks can't really comprehend with that. And now before we go to number 1, honorable mentions. So first off, Big Belly. So basically, original playstyle of Great Nature where you would choose one of your units and then give it knowledge, aka more power, and then retire at the end phase to get benefits, and combining it with all of it to the one rearguard, especially to give it the ability of success where when you reach it to a certain amount of power. And also some strides are cool. And then next we got Gunning Coolio, which has a very unique playstyle for any deck because it's a Mega Colony deck that focuses on milling your opponent's deck, which is something fun and all. It's just too bad this one lacks support for it to be really good or anything. I do like the idea, but this could also backfire in a way as well depending on the matchup like Grand Blue. But I do like the focus on milling your opponent's deck. And finally the Arbros Dragon because design wise it looks pretty gorgeous, but playstyle wise it isn't absurdly unique because it's just basically evolving your plant tokens even further, this time to 10k power and giving it boost and intercept ability. And that's all it really focuses on. Then that doesn't really do anything. And even if you talk about the original, it just focuses on basically every other Neo Nectar playstyle where you must have 2 or more of the same unit names. And finally to number 1, it's the main waifu clan of the Zoo Nation. It's Asha with Neo Nectars. Whether it's original or V, because original one plays with Bloom, which yes, it is basically still calling same name units, but more so an evolution of it, especially when you combine it with all the other Bloom abilities, you just get mass power, and of course still duplicating names as well. But what I really like about Bloom is that they share the power together. You call Bloom unit, all your other Bloom units with the same name get that same power as well. And that's something I really like about the Bloom mechanic with the original Asha. And her strides are cool as well. As for the V version, I really like the mechanic where you call Plant Token with basically Plant Token Asha that copies her stats and power. Probably to depower the Bloom mechanic a bit, but I kind of like it as well because sharing the power of Asha makes the deck a little more unique, especially for a Plant Token deck. Because I really like how it can utilize the Plant Tokens and then basically just make a new form of a Plant Token. And speaking of utilizing Plant Tokens, this deck can utilize it with Katrina and Bloomum as well. Just overall a gorgeous design, and I really like the playstyle of it. So that's it for my rankings of the Zoo deck. This is going to be the last of the rankings for the 3,000 years ago nations. And what do you guys think of it? How would you rank them? And what other decks would you put in the list, and what are your personal favorites? I just gave you mine, so go ahead and tell me yours. But other than that, that's it for this, and see you all next time.